There's a quest in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 that's so trivial you might not even notice it, yet it illustrates one of the most fascinating challenges in game development. It begins when you encounter a messenger on the side of the road. He's all upset about losing his master's package and begs you to beat him till he tells you to stop.
Wait! I have an idea! Punch me in the face! What?
Some players do just that. Others refuse, not wanting to get into trouble. Some players beat him to death, rob him, and flaunt their victory by wearing his clothes around town, inevitably getting arrested and branded a criminal. There are dozens more ways for players to respond to this simple request. And though this quest appears trivial, it showcases one of the most significant design hurdles developers face. It lets players tell their story. This is a video diving into how games use clever systems and leverage design philosophies to allow players to take the reins and write their own narrative. Do me a favor and let's try something. I'll give you a prompt and you say to yourself what happens next. It doesn't matter what it is. Make up something silly or funny or serious. Ready? You enter the bar. A woman sits at a table with a knife in plain view. What do you do? Well, did you do it? Whatever you decided happened next, this is an example of a player-driven narrative. If you've ever played a tabletop game like Dungeons & Dragons, you'll have encountered this in every session. The storyteller sets the scene and the players decide what happens next. This kind of freedom is wonderful, it's empowering, but that freedom is reliant on the human imagination to fill in the gaps. When you were deciding what happened next, you might have seen the bar in your mind. You filled in the candles or the other patrons or the bartender. Your imagination has very few rules or restrictions. When the storyteller is a computer game, there's many restrictions that need to be taken into consideration. While games may seem very freeform, they're built on rules. The content you experience needs to be built in advance. The game can't simply make up the scene on the fly. It can't write and record dialogue. It can't suddenly turn the knife into a bouquet of flowers like your imagination can.
What are you gonna do, guys?
Okay.
Meryl, we don't know if this apparition, this thing is evil or wishes us harm. There's no reason to attack.
To overcome these constraints, game developers use a number of tools and clever techniques to empower players to define the journey. The types of techniques used vary depending on the type of story being told, and though there are endless stories to be told by games, they can generally be bucketed into a few categories, ranging from linear to entirely open world. On one end of the scale, we have games which are very linear. If you've played games by Naughty Dog, you've definitely experienced this type. These kinds of games prioritize telling a strong, emotionally charged, fixed narrative over empowering the player to make a lot of choices. But there's still some moments where players get to have the controls. Combat specifically in these games, while always following the same flow, is determined by the player. On the other end of the storytelling spectrum are the open world exploratory experiences. Minecraft is a wonderful example here. These are games which have no explicit story, no NPCs or dialogue choices, no cinematics. These are games which rely entirely on world building, gameplay, and the player's inner voice to tell a story. And then there's everything in between, ranging from games which embrace providing players with choices, to those which rely on competition to create their own unique forms of non-narrative yet highly engaging stories. Let's explore some of the methods games use to fool you into thinking you're breaking the rules. The introduction to Naughty Dog's The Last of Us is one of the most immersive, compelling, and emotionally challenging sequences in games. Taking on the role of Sarah, Joel's young daughter, you're thrust into an intimate beginning that rapidly escalates into a terrifying fight for survival, culminating in a horrific, defining moment that shapes Joel forever.
Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby.
This sequence tells a powerful, predetermined story with cinematic style, yet it achieves an emotional connection that a movie alone could never truly capture. While the outcome is fixed, the game weaves in moments of player agency. This agency isn't about altering the outcome, but about being the character. You are the one walking Sarah through her home, deciding which small details to interact with, glancing at the ominous news flickering on the TV, or not. These are choices made by the player. They might seem like minor interactions, but they're what makes this so special. By literally taking control of Sarah, performing her actions, and seeing the world through her eyes during these moments, players form an incredible bond. You aren't just watching tragedy unfold, you're participating in it, feeling this tension rise and the eventual heartbreak on a much more personal level. This is something traditional passive media just can't replicate. And Naughty Dog have perfected this. Whether it's Sarah's brutal journey or an epic train escape in Uncharted, they excel at creating heavily authored set pieces and incorporating player control and moments of minor agency within them. This merging together allows them to deliver powerful, directed narrative beats while giving the player the ability to feel present and directly connected to the character and their actions. The key here is to ensure the content is balanced between how much active participation there is versus guided experience. It's important to make sure the player feels involved. It's not easy, of course. There are emotional beats, pacing, and intended path. It's a delicate harmony, giving the player enough agency to ensure they feel connected without blowing up this crafted story that needs to be told. When done well, like in The Last of Us, the result is unforgettable. In Fallout 4, while exploring the wasteland, you might happen upon a character named Gene.
Hey there. You look like someone who could use a dog.
He reluctantly offers to sell you his dog, which, if you convince him, provides a useful defensive bonus for one of your settlements. This encounter, and countless others like it, are what I refer to as distractions by design, and they may well be the most powerful of all these techniques. While titles like Uncharted offer controlled, linear narratives, and games like Minecraft grant pure sandbox freedom, games like Fallout and KCD inhabit a unique space somewhere in the middle. They present relatively defined main storylines with clear beginnings, middles, and a few possible endings. But enveloped within them are these rich open worlds full of random encounters to discover. Distractions by design are what empowers players to forge their own unique journeys within that structure.
I'm taking all of it as the rest of my payment.
After all we've been through with this guy?
That was never part of the deal.
Think of them as side quests designed to pull players away from the main path of the plot. Whether it's coming across Gene and his dog, stumbling upon a drunken hunter stuck in a tree, or discovering a hidden bunker filled with lore, these distractions serve a vital purpose. Without them, players might simply mainline the core quests, potentially missing the reactivity the world offers, leading to a more sterile, checklist-like experience. But simply scattering these random encounters across the world, it kinda isn't enough. These work best when there's an underlying, sophisticated system at play, a sort of distraction manager, determining how this content is delivered. This system considers factors like player location, time of day, progress in the main quest, or even previous choices to determine when and where a specific distraction might appear. Similar to the much lauded AI director in Left 4 Dead, this systemic approach prevents the world from feeling static and creates opportunities for interesting encounters to occur based on the player's exploration and the game's internal logic. It's not all upside though. Crafting these distractions and building the system to power it is a significant development challenge. Adding content that a large portion of the player base might never even see requires a lot of guts and a deep commitment to the philosophy of player agency. Yet the payoff for the player's experience can be immense. A player might sit down intending to advance the main plot only to be delightfully sidetracked by a compelling distraction, spending hours on an unexpected adventure they didn't plan for. This is basically every play session I have in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Ultimately, these distractions by design, managed by underlying systems, are where open world games truly leverage the potential of interactivity. They allow players to just break from the script, creating their own narratives within the larger framework, and be surprised by the game, transforming a potentially linear journey into a kind of personal epic. From the dice rolls in Craps to the iconic D20 of Dungeons & Dragons, games have long used random chance to determine the outcomes of critical moments. It's a core tool to games, and when used thoughtfully, it can significantly enhance player-driven stories. Of all the recent games, Baldur's Gate 3 puts chance front and center, particularly in its conversations and skill checks. The player gets to decide to persuade, deceive, or intimidate, but whether they succeed often comes down to a dice roll that's influenced by your character's stats and abilities. The interesting thing here is the blend of control and uncertainty. The player might choose the action, but the specific outcome remains unknown until the dice settle. This element of unknowing maintains a sense of mystery and tension, preventing gameplay from becoming entirely predictable. Even when you know the scenario, you don't know the exact result this time around. However, pure, unmitigated randomness risks becoming deeply frustrating. If players feel they have no tangible influence over the outcome, their choices lose meaning. Implementing randomness effectively isn't as simple as just rolling dice for everything. What's most important here is giving players a sense of agency within the randomness. In Baldur's Gate 3, this comes from building your character with relevant skills, using spells like guidance to boost your roll or spending inspiration points for a reroll. You can't guarantee success, but you can actively stack the odds in your favor. This allows players to feel a sense of control and see how their preparation impacts the chance-based outcome. KCD uses this well in some of its minigames, where a player's skill influences the random elements. When done well, random chance becomes super powerful. It creates an interesting tension as you watch the dice roll, knowing a crucial conversation hangs in the balance. It also has the possibility of boosting replayability, as the same encounter might play out differently on subsequent playthroughs simply due to the luck of a roll. Just like any of these techniques, it requires a careful balance. Too much randomness feels really unfair. Too little can make things feel too predictable, but used judiciously, especially when players feel like they can influence it through skill or progression, random chance becomes a valuable element in crafting unpredictable and engaging player-driven narratives. Even before those choose-your-own-adventure books we read growing up, games have explored the idea of letting players steer the story through their decisions. We see choices presented constantly, but there's a big difference between any choice and a meaningful one.
I'm not stopping to ask them to breathe deeply.
But what makes a choice meaningful? Well, it's one that has tangible consequences, altering the narrative, changing relationships with other characters, affecting the game world, or even modifying your own character's abilities or path. Choices without real impact leave players feeling railroaded or that their input doesn't truly matter. Meaningless choices aren't really choices at all. This becomes incredibly clear when looking at games that implement strong narrative choices, especially those allowing players to determine significant outcomes. One of the most powerful implementations of this is the good versus evil path, famously used in games like Knights of the Old Republic or the Fable series. In these games, your moral decisions don't simply offer branching dialogue options. They change your character's appearance, unlock unique abilities aligned with your path, drastically alter how NPCs react to you, and ultimately lead to distinctly different endings. These games make your alignment feel significant because its effects permeate the entire experience. Beyond clear-cut morality, many role-playing games like Baldur's Gate 3 or the Mass Effect series embrace complex narrative choices with far-reaching consequences. Pivotal decisions at key moments, who to trust, who to save, which faction to support, can determine the fate of companions, the survival of entire groups, and steer the overarching plot towards multiple unique conclusions.
Stop me if you must.
These choices truly define your specific version of the story. Implementing meaningful choices with significant branching is, frankly, incredibly difficult and expensive. It requires writing vast amounts of alternative dialogue and scenarios, scripting complex conditional events, potentially creating unique assets or locations for different paths, and rigorous testing to ensure it all holds together. That seemingly simple good versus evil path might require almost double or triple the content in some areas compared to a strictly linear approach. And while there might be less costly ways to offer player choice, few are as impactful as those that allow the player to shape that narrative arc. Despite the immense challenge, when done well, meaningful choices are one of the most powerful tools developers have. We've come a long way from choose-your-own-adventure novels. Rather than linear narratives, games like Dwarf Fortress or Kenshi or Minecraft rely on world building and layered, interconnected systems to allow players to tell their own stories. World building can be one of the strongest methods for creating compelling narratives, and Helldivers 2 does this remarkably well. With just a few short trailers, a cohesive art style, witty, sharp dialogue, and admittedly leaning on the existing vibe of Starship Troopers, Arrowhead makes it easy for players to fill in the blanks.
Sweet liberty!
Each time a Helldiver drops, there isn't a long backstory told, they aren't even given a name. Players are allowed to just imagine who their trooper is, if they do that at all. When a planet falls, the details and nuance of the fall does not need to be elaborated on by the game. In fact, when a game relies effectively on world building, sometimes less truly is more. Consider the narrative that emerged around the infamous planet Malevelon Creek. The broader, epic tale of the desperate battles fought there wasn't scripted. It was largely filled in by the community of players sharing their experiences of the fierce fighting in the jungle. This story comes about from the game's world building, combined with a few relatively simple systems that reflected players' actions or failures in the outcome of the planet itself. So how did a simple planetary struggle become an epic tale? It was driven by the game's world building interacting with its underlying systems. But what exactly is a system in game design? A system is a collection of gameplay rules and mechanics that work together to define a feature or behavior. A great example of interconnected systems creating emerging possibilities is the crime and punishment setup in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Imagine a player deciding to wait until nighttime, pick the lock of a vendor's shop, sneak inside, pick their pocket while they sleep, and use the stolen key to loot the vendor's goods. There's a lot going on under the hood to make this simple scenario even possible. It requires a time system to track day-night cycles, AI scheduling to ensure NPCs go to sleep, locking up their shops, security systems for the locks on doors to work, NPC awareness adapting to light and sound and proximity, player skill systems for lockpicking, stealth, pickpocketing abilities, an inventory system for tracking items including stolen status, and a consequence system so guards notice stolen goods, arrest mechanics, and reputation changes. All that just for this little 5-minute piece of gameplay. The magic here though is layering. These systems, time, AI, security, skills, inventory, consequences, they largely operate independently. The time system doesn't know about lockpicking. It doesn't need to. but because they exist side by side in the game world, players can combine them in creative ways to author their own actions and emergent scenarios. And there's a reason I grouped world building and systems together. World building on its own can lead to interesting linear quests. Layered systems on their own can create really surprising gameplay. But when combined, they truly shine. And that's where the player really deeply feels like they're interacting with and shaping the world around them. Competition in games has been around since the beginning of gaming. Whether it's sports like hockey, chess between kings, or an esport like StarCraft, pitting players against each other is commonplace. These types of games are probably not what first comes to mind when you hear the word narrative, but they generate some of the most interesting forms of player stories. If you play any of these kinds of games and you tell your friends about one of your experiences, you share it as a story. Certainly, there's points of data that go along with it, such as I shot 30 rounds of ammunition or I took damage to the torso, but that data is supplementary to the story being told. We share these experiences with each other in the most human way possible, as a story. These games accomplish this by establishing a field of play that is relatively equal to all sides, a set of rules and abilities that can be employed by the player, and a set of objectives for each player to accomplish in order to win. Take League of Legends, for example. Each player is playing on the same map, they have a chosen character with their own abilities to master, and a shared objective to destroy the enemy nexus. Each League game, despite starting in functionally the same way, has a wildly unique journey. Some matches might be a complete decimation, others a long, drawn-out tug of war decided by a single crucial moment. Sure, these may not follow Joseph Campbell's hero's journey structure, nor may they be true narratives in the strictest traditional sense, but I'd argue that they are equally interesting and just as valid player-driven stories. Just a different style. So we've explored an arsenal of techniques developers use, and each is powerful in its own right. But there's a foundational element underpinning all of them. The cornerstone upon which true player agency is built, if you will. Without it, even the most dramatic choices feel hollow, no matter what technique is used. That element is consequence. Think about it. What value does a branching choice hold if both paths simply converge later with minimal change? Meaningful consequences validate your agency by showing that your actions matter. This impact has to feel tangible, sometimes even irreversible. When certain followers die in Skyrim, they're gone permanently, whether it was because of a mistake in combat or leading them into overwhelming danger. Their death is a lasting consequence of your actions. That empty space serves as a constant reminder of a past event, adding genuine weight to how you approach future dangers. Players stress over whether they should load a save to bring them back or just let them stay dead forever. Some players completely change their playthrough and take on this John Wick-style quest to avenge them.
So you can either hand over your son, or you can die screaming alongside him!
This sense of permanence is made more important with limited save systems. Games like Dragon's Dogma often restrict your ability to save scum or rewind minor mistakes. Autosaves frequently overwrite your progress, meaning decisions are often locked in, making them even more meaningful. By removing the safety net, it forces players to live with the outcomes of their actions, good or bad. Every decision carries more weight because it feels final. You must deal with the fallout and push forward, making your choices profoundly more significant. These consequences are what transform player actions from mere button presses into meaningful events. They are the ultimate proof that you, the player, and the choices you make have a real, tangible effect on the world. So while developers employ fascinating methods to give players agency, the true magic really hinges on ensuring those actions ripple outwards, leaving a lasting, meaningful mark. Without significant consequence, we're just actors on a digital stage. With it, we become true co-authors of our own unique and unforgettable sagas. So what do you think? Are player narratives important? Are they as hard to build as what I've theorized here? Let me know in the comments. Hey, if you didn't know, I have a coffee where if you would like to, you can go there and buy me a coffee or subscribe or help me out in any way, shape or form. It goes a long way to help support these videos and I really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like more of this kind of content. For now though, thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.